honestly, there was at least a dozen producers that I was able to get meetings with or to have some sort of relationship with just based on that alone.
What was it like to get people to read your screenplay in those early days?
Oh, it was great. Even, I mean, the fact that someone would take time to read my screenplay, and because many times you just couldn't get anyone to read it, right? To get someone and to get feedback, that was very important to me, and Doni Nelson, who I mentioned, was my writing consultant. She would say, Bill, as a writer, and in this town, you want to fail upward. So every screenplay that wasn't sold by me still helped me in the next screenplay. I think all writers have to know that. That's why you keep writing, is because even your failed attempts are going to make you a better writer, and that's that stair-step approach that you're learning something every time you write. And so for me, it was really important for someone, a Hollywood producer, to read my screenplay.
As someone who wasn't in LA living, you were just flying in, how did you get someone to read your screenplays?
That's a good question, because there was I've got a couple answers to that. One was it was at the time there was a book. There was you could buy a book with every producers in Hollywood and their phone numbers.
Oh, wow.
And addresses. So I learned how to write a pretty good letter pitching my story. But what I learned in Hollywood is that producers and people in Hollywood work pretty hard and they work late. And so I would call the office, producer's office, very late in the day. And guess what? Sometimes the producer would pick up. No one else was there. Or very early in the morning. And so I found out that they would be the first in and the last out. And so I would call and I would pitch my story. And if it was something they liked, then I would send it, literally snail mail at the time. You'd put your script in a folder, in a big envelope with a letter of introduction, and you'd send it to them. Then I was able to. I found that there was this interesting connection. There were a lot of people in Hollywood with the Cincinnati connection. And I tell people that you'd be surprised whose brother works somewhere, or whose cousin or brother-in-law. And I started to peck my way through, and that would be my introduction. I understand you were born in Cincinnati. Well, yeah, and that would open a door. I honestly, there was at least a dozen producers that I was able to get meetings with or to have some sort of relationship with just based on that alone. So I tell people, if you don't live in Cincinnati, if you don't live in LA, wherever you live, I know there's people who have friends and relatives who are in the movie industry. And there was a woman named Eva Peel, and she was friends with Doni Nelson. Eva Peel had, her niche in the movie industry was that she would put together this one night she would get together, it could be as many as 18 to 20 producers and maybe 40 to 60 different writers. And we would pay for that night. And my friend called it speed dating for writers, because we would sit down and everybody would have like 5 minutes to pitch your story. So we'd pitch your story, and sometimes they were interested, sometimes they weren't. They'd say, well, send me the screenplay. Then after your 5 minutes were up, you'd go and sit with another producer. And we were in this big room. And so I got to know a lot, because I did that, I got to know a lot of producers. In fact, I would see Ryan would come to these, Ryan Johnson, and I would make contact with him like every quarter. You know, I would come out and that one night I would have, sometimes I would talk to 10 producers and I would be able to send 5 or 6 screenplays. I said there are writers who would work 6 months and not have that kind of productive night. And because of Eva Peel and her, I don't even remember what it was called now. There was a name for it, but that was her niche in the entertainment world. She would match up independent producers looking for stories, and unproduced writers looking to get their stories made. And that's where I met a lot of people, and made contacts, and actually made friendships.
Do you think it's harder now or easier now? You said there was this big book of producers with their phone number, and then you have these
Yeah, I think
meet and greets?
I think it's easier because of M. Night Shyamalan, and so many other filmmakers are now outside of Hollywood, and because of Zoom calls and other things. I think it's easier now, and it's more accepted. So some of my advice might be somewhat backward, but because I think writers today might be able to take advantage. And with emails, right? You can email and have a contact and be able to get your script to someone that same day, as opposed to me sending a script 3 days later. And so I think in my opinion, it would be easier today to make contact because of those things, because of technology, really.
Sure, but it doesn't mean you'll open the email. I mean, you might not even see it until months later. So
Right.
when the U.S. Postal Service brings you a package, you go, oh, what's this?
Right.
It's
Well,
a little different, yeah.
That's a good point. So I don't, because almost everyone I talk to now, I know, or I've met, or I have a reason to communicate with them. I'm not cold calling on someone,
And most people don't pick up their phones today.
right.
So in some ways, that's what I was just wondering, because we're so inundated and things are so accessible and we're so overloaded. Is it almost, maybe that way was working at that time?
And it was, because everyone had an office phone. That was right on the cusp of cell phones, but you could get a producer in his or her office because that's where they were to take the phone calls.